Are echo chambers the real reason that humans fear bumps in the night? What kicked off a gang of children hunting monsters? Did a demon attack an innocent girl and other victims in Victorian London? Today we test the believability of the Gorbals vampire, Spring Heel Jack, and mass hysteria.
Welcome to Believing the Bizarre,
Where we dive into the unknown and the unusual
and tell you whether or not we find it believable.
Welcome back. Happy Tuesday. Oh my goodness, Tyler. This topic.
We got
These topics.
It's plural. Multiple.
This was sent in by a listener. They said, hey, you should do this. And I said, I like Scotland.
You're like, I'll double one up. Like, not only am I going to do that, I'm going to do something else with it and throw a third name in the title.
I'm going to make sure this title's nice and juicy.
Chunky.
But before we get started, if you like these episodes and you want to experience the whole catalog, we've got so much more on Patreon. Come join us. And if you want to get these episodes ad-free, no ads at all. You heard the ads in the beginning? They're not there. The lowest level is ad-free.
Absolutely. And the support goes a long way.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes, it does. Indubitably. So my sources today are Hidden Scotland, David Castleton, Glasgow, 2024, Mental Floss, HistoricUK.com, DannyChase.com, TheCornnose.com, HistoryAndImmigration.com, Crystal Links, and Wikipedia.
See, when you say, what was the floss one?
Mental Floss.
Yeah, I'm picturing taking like flossing for your teeth.
Yeah.
And you're just like going to like your occipital lobe and then like your peripheral lobe. It makes it.
That's what you're supposed to think of, I think.
I don't really like it, to be honest.
It's bad mental image.
Bad juju.
You got mental floss that out of there, you know?
That's how I handle my trauma.
So, that being said, let's get into our actual stories. We're going to start with the Gorbals vampire.
Can you
say it?
Yes.
Gorbals.
Gorbal.
Gorbals.
I can say Gorbal Redenbacher. Just because I said it in the quiz. There is a quiz.
Oh, yeah. I forgot to mention.
There's a quiz attached to this very episode.
Yeah, on our Patreon. If you've not listened yet, if you're stopping right here, if you've not taken the quiz, listen to the quiz, you should go be a $5 member and take the quiz.
You should print out the quiz. Take the quiz.
I don't know.
Mail us in your results.
I could send you it'll have the answers on it.
That's what we should start doing, is having people take the quiz
and then PDF.
Send them in to us and you'll get like a sticker.
That'd be fun. I don't hate that, actually. But you should go take the quiz with Tyler. See how you do comparatively. I hope you win. We'll find out.
He means you, not me. He wants me to lose every time.
I mean, yeah. Yes. I am pretty hyper competitive, honestly. That's why I hate bowling. I think I mentioned that before. I hate bowling because I'm very bad at it, but I want to win.
I think and this isn't just a random thing it is random, but you and I should truly, when we're retired, throw darts.
Throw darts? Yeah. I was going to say golf.
Yes.
Yes.
Are you highly competitive with golfing?
I don't.
You get mad at yourself, but it's not like.
Yeah.
But like you and I are a team in darts.
I take it out on myself in golf.
You and I should throw darts in our retired years.
Okay. I mean, yeah. Yes, I'll do things.
You throw knives, you can throw darts.
I think knives might be harder, so I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do it. Anyway, so I've got a couple quotes to start with the Gorbals vampire. Quote 1: "Behold a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strongly exceedingly, and it has great iron teeth." End quote. And that is Daniel 7:7 from the Bible.
What are the three other beasts?
I don't know. There might be more than 4. I don't know.
But there's at least 4, and it's the fourth one.
4, yeah. He had iron teeth. And then from September 23rd, 1954, quote, "An assembly of several hundred local children ranging from 4 years old to teenagers on the hunt for a vampire. The kids were armed with knives, sharpened sticks, homemade tomahawks, and many had brought their dogs."
Somebody's like, "All right, you guys, I brought my dogs." She's like, "Oh, I made a tomahawk." Someone cares a little bit more than the others,
dude. And knives, like he brought knives.
Iron teeth. See, iron teeth is what happens when you spend all your time flossing your brain instead of your teeth. They just fall out and you throw some iron in there.
Dude, This quote, this is what made me do this episode.
The one we just heard?
Yeah, I love that quote. That's insane to me. I was like, oh, because I clicked on this first article and it said that quote. I was like, that's nuts. That's fucking nuts.
Yeah, the guy who brought his dogs probably saw everyone else and was like, oh, like maybe I misread the text.
I don't know. It's like an angry mini mob of children. It's
How
like
old are the
from 4 years old to like teenagers.
4?
4 years old, ranging from 4 years old to teenagers.
The 4-year-old made the tomahawk.
That kid's got knives in both hands.
Okay.
But yeah, so let's actually get into what the Gorbals vampire is. There's no setting the scene. We're just diving in. So the Gorbals vampire. On the evening of the 23rd of September 23rd, right after school, all the children in the area of Gorbals collectively went to the local cemetery. They gathered any weapons they could, knives, sticks, hatchets. They even brought attack dogs. There's a quote here. Quote, the word was that there was a vampire and everyone was going to head out there after school. At 3 o'clock, the school emptied out and everyone made a beeline for it. We sat there for ages on the wall, waiting and waiting, stated Ronnie Sanderson, age 8 at the time of the vampire hunt. And that was from Glasgow 2024. So he was there. So that's what happened. They just all went there.
What year? Or no, that was the website.
Yeah. Glasgow
Okay.
2024.
Mine was going. Man, the kid just like, yeah, I was going to bring my machete, but I got homework tonight, so have fun.
They all ditched everything, man. It's nuts.
Commitment. But
Yeah.
I mean, they were trying to protect their community.
Maybe.
You don't think so?
I don't know what I think.
Okay. Even if this thing's not real, do you think in their mind it was real?
Yes.
Well, then,
Absolutely.
I mean, if they weren't just playing around, I mean, if you're playing around, I mean, the whole thing is dangerous. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between them acting out for the sake of it. Like, like we don't truly think this thing is real, but we're just trying to join in and go crazy.
Yeah.
Versus them like, we really need to kill this thing because it's evil. You know?
There is, I think there's some of that. There's also a lot of, like we'll get into it later. We'll get into it
Like
why
the
they actually
hysteria
thought
factor?
that. Yeah. So a mix between streetlights, the sun setting, an overcast sky, and several bonfires lit the graveyard. It created a scene filled with hundreds of paranoid-filled school children with weapons. The moving shadows popped in their minds. All the children were screaming and running whenever one of them saw something bending the light. Tara Smith, who was there, she said, quote, the red lights and the smoke would flare up and make all the gravestones leap. You could see the figures walking about at the back, all lined in the red light, end quote. So all the children ran wild until that evening when the police showed up.
So this is like right after school, 3 p.m.
Yep. So 3 o'clock to this is September, so it's sunsetting a little bit later. So like 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. So this is about 8 o'clock when the police finally show up.
Could you imagine you're like, all right, like we're going to go hunting this night, guys. And you show up and it's like 100 kids and you're like,
Dude, it's I don't think how many kids there actually were. There were hundreds of children.
Could you imagine if you were just there that day though? Like
at the cemetery?
yeah, just
and
like you're
all
like
these kids
you're paying
show up
respects or
with
something.
knives?
Yeah, you're like, I gotta get out of here.
Like, did that one kindergarten make a tomahawk?
There's one like the groundskeeper is like there and he's just like, okay, they don't pay me enough for this.
Groundkeeper's Willie from The Simpsons. He's like, oh.
He pulls up his shovel. He's like, it's go time.
No, just imagine seeing 5-year-olds with knives. That's insane. So the police finally showed up. And when the police came in, the children rioted even harder. They did not listen to the police at all. They're like, all right, kids, break it up. And they went, F you.
Yeah.
And the police tried again to get the kids to disperse.
Yeah.
No avail.
Right.
No, the police could do nothing. And only when the overcast day started to open up and rain started to fall, and the headmaster told the children to stop being ridiculous, is when they finally, after a long, long night of hunting, they went home. And that actually shows really how rapport goes a long way with children. Like, because the cops didn't have any kind of rapport with the children,
Mhm.
but the headmaster, there's someone they know, see probably regularly, he shows up, telling them to leave. That's how rapport really goes a long way. And you learn that, in education.
Okay. If anyone listening to this didn't remember where this takes place, at this moment, you now know this is not an American story.
That's right. This is in Glasgow.
Yeah, if this was anywhere in the United States.
They'd be like, they'd kill that teacher with the knives.
No,
No, the police would open fire.
yeah.
So that first night, they went home. The next night, the kids came back, and they continued to come back for several days. They continued to come back with less and less numbers, but they came back for 4 days in a row.
So why do they think there was a vampire here?
We're getting there. I have an answer to that in a second here. Now, they finally stopped on the 26th when the papers ran a headline that said, "Vampire with iron teeth dead." Now, the rumor that started this madness was that several days ago, no idea how many days ago, by the way, 2 boys had gone missing in the graveyard, but had shown up dead with bite marks in their neck and drained of blood. Now, I want you to ask me a question, a very specific question, but I don't know if you're going to ask it. Do you have a question in mind?
No, go ahead.
Okay. There's no evidence of these kids actually being missing.
Okay.
There's no missing reports. There's no actual evidence of the kids ever going missing. So this was...
I was imagining a coroner like licking the wound and be like, "Yep, iron." We don't know anything about this guy except he definitely had iron teeth.
It's like when you put an iron fish in your soup to get more iron, but it's blood. Yeah.
The dude drinks so much blood that his teeth just became iron.
Yeah. I don't know. Okay. So we're getting to why it was potentially an iron tooth vampire here in a second.
So there's a rumor these kids are missing
Yeah.
and they got killed, even though there's no evidence that there were kids missing or killed.
Right.
And they were like, "Must be a vampire."
Yeah. Well, there's some reasons why. So the Gorbals vampire came from a couple different ideas. So what actually led these children to believe the vampires lurking in the city? Theories around it, most popular explained, are folklore, media influence, and just patenting. Number 1, the local superstitions of the iron tooth monster. So while the idea of the vampire with the iron teeth might sound bizarre, it is not entirely new. Glasgow had its share of urban legends, and one of them involved a monstrous figure with metal fangs. And some suggest that this legend may have been influenced by older Scottish tales of demonic entities. So it's not a new idea of this monster with iron teeth. It's just new how they interpreted it. And number 2, the influence of horror comics at the time. American horror comics were widely popular among British children. Titles like Tales from the Crypt and Vault of Horror featured supernatural creatures, including vampires. Now,
What year is this again?
This is 1954.
Okay.
So this is right at the height of the start of comic books.
Gotcha. Okay.
Now, a commonly cited influence is a comic called The Vampire with the Iron Teeth.
Yeah.
But it said it was published in 1950. But some believe this specific story was planted because no known copy of this comic has ever been found. Now, it might be a comic under a different name, not called that specifically, where it's the same context, but no comic has been found.
At this point, I feel like even under different contexts, somebody would have been like, "Oh, they probably meant this." There's enough comic book nerds out there.
There's so many like comics out there that maybe that's what they meant. But I will say, no comics been found with that name specifically.
Okay.
Now, to understand the real why this might have happened in Glasgow, we need to look at not Glasgow 1950. No, this is where the history element takes place. So I hope you're doodling your notebooks. Tyler, you need to
Yellow, is that
wake up.
yellow?
History, yeah. Social studies.
We're on the
history.
same page with that one.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Not anything else.
No, math was green, right?
No, math is red. Math is red.
English is green.
No, English is blue.
No.
Science is green.
No.
See, nothing else.
Okay,
Nothing.
we got yellow.
What is music?
I didn't have a notebook for music.
I
I
did.
had my trumpet.
Music was purple for
Sheet
me.
music.
Black and white.
When was the last time you read sheet music?
Dude, I tried actually like a year ago, and I was like, this is gibberish.
I remember FACE. Every good boy does fine.
Yeah.
Thank God for tabs, bro.
Oh, yeah. So, the Gorbals district was a tough
So
working...
Gorbal is
Gorbals. It's a district. Yep.
Gorbals.
Gorbals.
It just sounds like you got marbles in your
Gorbals.
mouth. Gorbal.
Gorbals.
Like you're the
It's
Godfather.
probably...
Gorbals.
it's probably like easier to say or understand with like a Scottish accent. Okay, side tangent about Scotland. Something very interesting to me. They have their own specific dialect. Did you know that? It's called Scots. And it's not English per se. It's its own almost offshoot of English. Like there's books written in Scots and like you can almost understand it. And I had to akin it to almost like a modern version of Old English or Middle English. Like you could like if you read like original Chaucer, you can like almost pick out the words.
Yeah.
It's really similar to that.
Okay.
What?
Sounds stressful.
Well, if you're Scottish, it's just like you're raised in it.
No, I mean, it's good for them. That's cool.
I think it's really neat. It's really fascinating to me. But back to Scotland, 1950. The Gorbals district was a tough working class neighborhood, and that means there was overcrowding in the city and it was a poor community. And much like Ohio, Scotland becomes overcast a lot. And there's a lot of pollution because of the industrialization that caused a lot of smog from the nearby steel workers that create a permanent haze over the city, which is also why Cleveland's so hazy.
So we're the same.
We're basically the same. So the people of Gorbals district grew up with the iconic Victorian graveyard of the Necropolis in its view. It's this beautiful graveyard. But they got used to it, and they lived there, and it was in their everyday life. But it was still creepy. And this eerie thing filled some of the excitement of the paranormal in their everyday life. Like, imagine you, almost like in Louisiana, right? They have those gorgeous cemeteries that are huge.
Okay. Yeah.
Imagine that's your everyday.
Like parish type stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's very cool.
Sorry, I was trying to think of who Cleveland's vampire would be. I kept thinking Ben Roethlisberger. Oh. You kept comparing Cleveland, so I figured we need a vampire.
Well, Ben Roethlisberger is from Pittsburgh.
No, he's from Ohio.
Is he?
He's Cleveland's vampire. I mean, like he's like our nemesis. Like bad guy.
I see.
But no, he's from Ohio. That's why he hated the Browns, because we didn't draft him.
Is he really?
He went to Miami, Ohio. I think he was born in Ohio too.
Wow.
That's why he hates us.
Well, I hate him because he did some bad stuff.
Yeah.
That is where our story about the Gorbals vampire stops.
So, well, who died though?
No one.
No, in the news story said that the vampire was dead.
Yeah, that was to stop the kids raging. That was to stop the kids from going to. That was just an appeasement. No one really died.
That is wild for a newspaper to claim dead, and then everyone it's like they got a PTA meeting. They're like, all right, everyone, when you tuck your kids in at night, put their knives away, and then tell them the vampire is dead.
Well, imagine waking up, or imagine going out and like mowing the yard, and hundreds of kids marching down the street going to chase the vampire again.
No, I get that. I'm just saying to me it's still crazy for them to make a headline like it's dead. And
yeah, it's almost like around Christmas time where like they'll make headlines about Santa Claus, I think.
Same thing.
Yeah, no one actually died.
It's still crazy how they're young.
Yeah.
But buying in just from, I wonder there's one kid, and they're not a kid anymore. They're like, 90. But someone started a rumor that these kids disappeared, and they were just like, yo.
Oh, it's like a movie. It's like, maybe this has gone too far.
Yeah, I probably am not going to say anything. I'm going to let this one ride out.
So now we're going to talk about Spring Hill Jack.
Surprisingly not Spring Hill Jack.
Oh, that is?
That's what it sounds like everyone says.
Oh, Spring Heel Jack?
That's what it is.
Yeah.
It sounds like it sounds like a place, like Spring Hill, like Scribner Hill Devil.
Oh, okay.
Like Spring Hill. That's what it sounds like. Spring Hill.
You know what? You're right. I've never thought of it though.
Spring Heel.
Spring Heel. Healed Jack.
Like your heel of your foot.
I wonder if it's a stronger pronunciation in English, like British English, maybe. Spring Heeled Jack.
You see, we put the H in it so you think hill. They just dropped that shit.
That's right. I did want to shout. I talked about it in the quiz, but Spring Heeled Jack Coffee in Columbus, not sponsored.
Not a sponsor,
but
could be a sponsor.
They do sponsor Last Podcast and Left. They actually have their own like brand with their own like coffee with them. I got it a long time ago. It's delicious.
We tried working with a coffee company, but we got left on red.
We did. You
even met one of their employees.
I did. Bones. Put the shit on blast.
Okay. Sure.
So I've got two quotes again, like I did for the Gorbals Vampire. Quote, over the hills and over the dale, and he went over the plain and backwards and forth switched his long tail, as the gentleman switches his cane. Samuel Taylor keywords the devil's thoughts. And the next quote, murderers are not monsters. They're men. And that's what's the most frightening thing about them. Alice from The Lovely Bones. Those are telling. So, Spring Hill Jack.
You're like, anyway. No one writes like that anymore, man.
No, they don't. Who wrote The Lovely Bones, you know?
No.
I have no idea. I was just curious if you knew who it was.
No. At one time, I think I did, but
yeah.
That part of my brain's been like, Control-Deleted.
It's not a scary movie, but it is
Yeah.
Steph covered that on her show, 13
Belly
Degrees of Scream. Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like in space, if you imagine just like a spaceship just like releasing junk into like space.
Yeah.
That's what it is sometimes with just stuff in your head, you know? You just got to let it go.
Get it out there. If you do hear the air, we are actually not in our studio. We are at Tyler's home. And that's why there's no video of this as well. We're just recording. We're naked. At the house.
You guys don't understand.
So if you hear the air kicking on, that's what that is.
It's actually the heat. I promise you it's not the air.
Ooh, it's warm in here. So, over 100 years ago, before the Gorbals vampire in Scotland, London, in 1837, a very special place in time. It was divided between the uber rich and the poor working class in the East End. Ghost stories were told on Christmas, and this was a time that was illuminated by the dark side of life. They were superstitious and obsessed with ghosts, fairies, demons, and monsters.
I need to incorporate that. Like, here's your Christmas present, Joey. Do you want to hear about the Germana Clara Seeley or the Clara Germana Seeley demonic possession?
Listen, so like Scared to Death, not to promote something else, but Scared to Death does a yearly Christmas horror story from like old-timey Victorian England. And they're great. The first one was awesome.
I think we should start doing that. I think when we're passing out guests, we should start just telling everyone
horror stories,
the scariest stuff.
And while they're unwrapping it, you can
stop crying. Look, it's what you wanted.
So happy.
She's so happy.
I love this hybrid.
It's great.
So only a year before the brutal Jack the Ripper killings took place, the entity that was Spring Heel Jack haunted the streets. The monster was said to be a tall man dressed as a Victorian gentleman, except he was able to jump impossible heights in a single bound. His eyes blazed with flame, and he was also said to breathe blue and white fire like a dragon. He had sharp silver claws that he would attack the innocent with. He was a demon that terrorized the city. No one knows exactly how long he was there for, but his presence was felt for decades. Now, the only question is, what exactly was he? Most seem to think he was a demon. Bum, bum, bum.
A well-dressed demon.
Well, I mean, if you're a demon, you gotta do it right.
He goes to a tailor. Just a demon walks in. He's like, I need this seamed in.
Actually, in my mind, he's almost like got this high pitch, like, yes, let me in to do my inseam.
Someone's doing measurements on a demon. You know he didn't pay.
No, he just blew fire and ran out.
He burped his fire everywhere. The old tailor burned down. Don't know what happened.
Blimey.
Tragedy, really.
So the first sightings in London of 1837 to 1838. The first recorded actual encounter with Spring-Heeled Jack took place in the autumn of 1837. A businessman was walking through Clapham Commons late at night, and he claimed to have seen a dark figure with glowing eyes leap over a fence in a single bound. That sighting might have been dismissed as imagination until more reports followed. In October of the same year, a young girl named Mary Stevens was walking to her job as a servant in the wee hours of the morning in a house in Lavender Hill through the Barms and Commons when a shadowy demonic figure lunged at her from an alley. Just so you know, trigger warning for this, possible sexual assault before I get into it. So he grasped her tightly with his claws, and without her consent, he started to kiss her face while aggressively tearing at her clothes with his cold, metallic claws. She screamed, bringing out the people from the houses around her, and her attacker vanished into the night by leaping over a tall wall with inhuman ease.
Could you imagine if he blew the fire while he was kissing her?
Oh my God. Like she's got burns because
Just
of this?
swallow. It's like the hottest wing imaginable in your throat.
True story. So I went to Buffalo Wild Wings with my friend Nick, and this monster, he ordered 12 wings. He said, can I get 6 of them with the third and hottest sauce you have, 6 of them with the second hottest sauce you have, and then a dipping side of the hottest sauce you had. And I saw him consume this.
See, I feel like you'd be tapping out with like honey barbecue.
yeah, it would be. It's a little much for
me.
We
would not be good on the hot ones, or what is it called?
Hot ones, yeah.
Is that the show?
Yeah, it's Hot Ones.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I would love to go on Hot Ones. That'd be like we made it. We're here.
It would be a 5-minute show. We can't even do jalapenos.
I don't know if you're allowed to tap out.
You would need a cow. You would literally, like, not a glass of milk. Charlie would need a cow with udder access.
Utter access. It'd be cool, though. It'd be real cool. Someone took it like a champ recently. I think it was like...
I know Jen Ortega's on it recently.
Yeah.
Maybe not recently. It could have been like 2 years ago. I don't know.
Right?
I just see clips.
Yeah, I do too. The next night, Mary saw the same figure appear near her home. In front of her home, this creature leapt in front of a moving horse carriage, causing the driver to lose control and swerve, crashing and hurting himself badly. Onlookers again came out of their home and claimed that he escaped by jumping over a 9-foot wall while laughing maniacally as he disappeared.
He's lucky this is before Ford F-150s came out.
Just would have plowed right through that.
So we can assume the dude had the first pair of moon shoes.
Those suck. Did you ever have moon shoes?
No.
You couldn't bounce very high at all. It's just me. I couldn't jump as a kid. In early 1838, the panic had spread across London. Eyewitnesses described an agile demonic figure who could jump to rooftops and vanish into mists. But the most infamous encounter was yet to come. Now, there are two here. The attack on Aslope and the attack on Scales. On February 19th, 1838, that was a couple days ago, an 18-year-old girl named Jane Aslow was at her home in London on the Old Ford District when she heard frantic knocking at the door. A tall shadow of a man outside shouted, quote, "I am a policeman. For God's sake, bring me a light. We have caught Spring-Heeled Jack in the lane." So, rushing to help, Jane grabbed a candle and opened the door, only to be met by a tall, crooked man who was wearing a cloak. He threw off his cape, revealing a hideous, demonic face with glowing, flaming eyes. His mouth opened, spitting blue and white flames. He wore a helmet, a tightly fitting, shiny suit, and what appeared to be a lamp attached to his chest. Jane screamed as he lunged at her. He breathed blue fire, and his metallic claws ripped at her dress and neck. He grabbed the young girl, and he put her in a headlock and tore more vigorously at her clothes. She struggled against him, finally breaking free and fleeing inside. But as she was escaping, he grabbed the back of her hair and tore tufts out of her scalp. Her family came to her rescue. Her younger sister froze on seeing the visage of the man, but her older sister body-checked this monster and slammed him out of the door, and the attacker fled into the night, leaping effortlessly over a high fence. Jane's story made headlines, cementing Spring-Heeled Jack as a true menace. The Lord Mayor of London, Sir John Crowan, publicly acknowledged the reports and launched the investigation. Yet despite the increased patrols on a city in high alert, the attacker was never caught. Quote, 8 years later, another young lady, 18 years old, Lucy Scales, was spooked by Spring-Heeled Jack on her way home from her brother's house. Seconds after she stepped out into the street, a blood-curdling scream woke the neighborhood. Locals rushed to find Lucy sprawled out on the cobblestone. A shadowy man had lunged at her from the shadows. Lucy screamed, then fainted, and the man ran off before anyone could catch sight of him. Quote. So, those are the most well-known sightings of Spring-Heeled Jack in 1838. There are some more.
The second one was in 1838?
It was as well. It was.
Did you say 8 days or 8 years?
8 days.
Why did I think you said years?
I don't know.
Okay.
It was only 8 years. It was only 8 days.
8 days later. Gotcha.
So from the 9th.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I must have just misheard you.
Was that on your birthday?
What?
The 8 days.
What was the first day?
February 19th.
No, that would be like the 27th. I was born in March.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're right. Okay.
Even if it was like a leap year. Actually, leap year would make even
Farther away. I don't think they had leap years back then.
They just dealt with it.
Oh, you know what? They did. Because I think it was Benjamin Franklin. But I don't know if it was worldwide implemented yet. So, the later sightings. So, from 1843 to 1845, Jack was spotted in the Midlands, where he allegedly terrorized villagers before disappearing into the night. And these are all throughout England now. 1877, Aldershot Barracks was a military base in Surrey, and it was guarded by around the clock by soldiers with guns. Barracks held upwards of 10,000 men at a time. and a tall man was said to jump the building, and he snuck up on the guards and grabbed their faces. Now, the trained men ran around in a panic. Backups were called, and some of the soldiers managed to shoot a volley in his direction as he leapt away, laughing into the night. Now, in the fall of that same year, he bounced from roof to roof in Newport. The locals said they had even hit him, but nothing could stop him. He just bounced and laughed it off. Now, the last one in 1904, one of the last major sightings occurred in Liverpool, where locals claimed a shadowy figure with glowing eyes and supernatural agility was seen leaping between rooftops. Now, there has not been another sighting since, but the legend of Spring Hill Jack still lives on. So, we've got one major theory presented by general populace. And if you're going to ask me, I think it's a little lame. It's a good theory, but it's not the most fun theory.
It's not mass hysteria?
It is mass hysteria.
Okay. Let's go by the title here.
And the other theory is my favorite.
That it's a real entity?
It's an entity, but not only a real entity, that both these were trickster spirits.
Okay.
So what is a trickster spirit? Will this even be an episode if I didn't go into some detail of why this entity is somehow a fae, especially on one of my favorite countries on earth, the United Kingdom? Would it?
No.
Absolutely not. Absolutely fucking not. So, what is a trickster spirit?
So we're doing that before mass hysteria?
Yeah.
Okay. No, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's get into it. Convince me.
All right. So, this is a quote from Crystal Links.
This is a quote from me. It was Faye, damn it.
Well, you know. In mythology and the study of folklore and religion, a trickster is a god, goddess, spirit, man, woman, or anthropomorphic animal who plays tricks on others, disobeys normal rules and conventional behavior. It is suggested by Hansen of 2021 that the term trickster was probably first used in context in 1885. The trickster deity breaks the rules of gods of nature and sometimes maliciously, for example, Loki, but usually ultimately for positive effects, but not necessarily. So often the rule breaking takes the form of tricks or thievery, but anything in that realm. Tricksters can be cunning or foolish or both. They are often very funny, even when considering scaring or performing important culture tasks. In many cultures, as we see in the Greeks or the Nordics or Slavic folk tales, along with Native Americans or First Nations, the trickster and the culture hero often combined. So think of Prometheus in the Greek mythology when he stole fire to give to man. I don't think Prometheus is really a great example of a trickster, but so there are so many tricksters. I thought about listing some, but there are so many. If you look it up, there are dozens.
So we're talking about Spring Hill Jack.
Yeah, and the Gorbals Empire. I'll connect the dots here. Relax.
Okay.
But there are many examples of trickster gods. Now, one specific trickster god is Lugh, and he is a Celtic god. He's the closest thing to a trickster god in Celtic mythology. Now, Celtic mythology doesn't necessarily play into England, but it definitely does in Scotland, where there's a Celtic background. And you can definitely argue by the 1800s, potentially, that so many people from Ireland have immigrated over to England that their creed, their religions possibly follow them there. There's no reason why they have to be stuck in Ireland or stuck in Scotland. I think that Lugh is definitely an interesting candidate. It doesn't quite match the traits of Spring Hill Jack, but it's definitely a candidate for what this creature could be. So, if you consider the idea that a god, a trickster god, could be responsible for toiling with mortals, maybe that's what this is. But there's also the trickster fae archetype, and that comes down to the puka. It's a fairy that is a Celtic mythology, and its name actually in Old English translates to goblin.
It's a damn good wide receiver, too.
It's a great. He's from Hawaii, I think.
Something like that.
He's
fantastic.
I love Puka Nakua.
Yeah.
And It's just obligatory. It just sounds like, anyway. So the puka is said to be a shape changer that could turn into a horse, a goat, cat, dog, anything along those lines, even in hares. And it's also said to take on the shape of humans. Now, this is where I think you can really connect it to the Gorbals vampire and Spring Hill Jack. Both these things are human-like. They're not quite humans because the shape-changing ability of the puka isn't perfect. It takes on humans with animal-like characteristics. Maybe monstrous faces. Maybe it's got gleaming teeth. Maybe this human could breathe fire or bounce. Now, it was regarded as being, it could be peaceful or it could have menace or it could be hateful. Now, there's a quote about the puka from a fairy mythologist. I really want to hang out with him. Thomas Knightley. He said, quote, "Notions respecting it are very vague." And in a brief description he gave to the collector of Corker from a boy living near Kilnarty that, quote, "Old people used to say that the pukas were very numerous long ago. They were wicked-minded, black-looking bad things that would come in the form with wild colts with chains hanging around them," end quote.
You gotta watch out for the pukas.
It's very ominous, the visions. Now, is it possible that the two sightings in the home of a place that has so much magic, in a land full of fairies, and that the fairies, that something's running amok that isn't necessarily just a human mind? And that's what I posit to you to think. That maybe this is something more than just mass hysteria.
Were you gonna talk about the mass hysteria side?
That's what we're going to get to next.
Okay.
Now, the most logical, probably the most boring argument is that this is just mass hysteria. So there's good evidence behind it. I'm not going to lie. There's good evidence behind this. More than just isolated events, these two stories serve as, unfortunately, textbook examples of mass hysteria and mob mentality, showing how fear can be spread rapidly through our community, especially when amplified by cultural anxieties and sensationalist medias. So, in case of Spring Hill Jack, in 1837, London was a city that was on the edge of industrialization. It was a different society. It was transforming, much like the industrialization of America a little bit before that.
Mm-hmm.
People were dealing with rapid social change. Like I said, uber rich, very poor. There was crime. It wasn't exactly a very safe area. And the society was also obsessed with Gothic horror. And it was so popular as well. So when Spring Hill Jack allegedly attacked his first victim, people already were primed to believe that dark forces were lurking in the alleys. That the glowing red eyes, the sharp claws, the blue flames were something that were monstrous and supernatural. So the fear being reported spread like wildfire. And soon the entire city was convinced that something was leaping through the night, terrorizing the innocent. Now, the key to understanding the mass hysteria here surrounding Spring Hill Jack is that the nature is suggestibility. Because once the newspaper started to cover it, people started to see it. Like when you get something, you start to see it everywhere.
Yeah. Cars, especially.
Mm-hmm. So you say you saw someone that looked like a devil. Others say they saw a man in a tight suit. Countless reports, no one ever saw anything exactly like it. But at its core, the legend of Spring Hill Jack was just a feedback loop. People repeating the stories to each other. One person reporting sightings, the newspaper exaggerating, and then more people were convinced because they saw the same thing. So that's potentially where the feedback loop of Spring Hill Jack came from, causing that mass hysteria.
The Ed Sheeran.
He's real. I saw him. That flaming red hair.
The feedback loop. He loves that.
He does. I don't know if he does anymore, but he did.
Loop City.
Because he relied on himself because he's so...
Why pay other session musicians?
Absolutely.
I can just do it my damn self.
So now, fast forward to the Gorbals vampire in 1954, where a completely different setting produced in a very eerily similar event. So this time, fear wasn't the leaping demon, but it came from the vampire in the beautiful cemetery of the Southern Necropolis. So again, dozens of school children, 4 to 14, 15, gathered in the cemetery after hearing rumors of 2 local boys being eaten by the vampire, armed with sticks, knives, homemade tomahawks to look for the actual creature. So again, no reports of children were actually found though. So this is really just the rumor mill.
Mm-hmm.
No evidence of it. So that suggests the mob mentality, the mass hysteria, where the story of the Iron Tooth vampire spread like a virus among the children. And as soon as one of them swore they saw it, they all started to see the same thing. They might have even eventually believed that they actually saw this vampire.
Right.
And so even just like with Spring Hill Jack, when the adults and the authorities got involved, it just amplified everything even more until the whole thing was thankfully put down by the newspapers lying to the children.
Media's like, this lying thing kind of works.
It's a good idea.
You can control mass population with lies.
So that is that's the other argument for what happened. And you can pin some of this on the cultural fears of Spring Hill Jack and the vampire. Like, this was already in their mentality. They had those rumors, myths about the old Scottish demons with iron teeth. And the Victorian Gothic horror was already primed for Spring Hill Jack. And also, don't forget, there were horror comics involved with the Gorbals vampire as well. That could be a huge contributing factor.
Well, supposedly.
They never found the one specific one, but there were definitely horror comics.
Okay.
So, and then the last thing I want to appeal to is the lack of critical thinking in high stress moments. And we talk about this all the time. When you're in a high stress moment, you're not thinking clearly. There's a reason why testimonies by people are not
accurate.
Yeah.
The fight or flight. And it's just like 3 different people can have this completely different testimonies for the same exact event.
Yeah. So like if 3 people saw Spring Hill Jack, 3 people are looking for completely different things. They're not seeing the same things. They're not making the same connections. Like we've used this example before, but the car crash, right? 3 different people see a car crash. They all see different things happening. They can't even name the same color of the car. And, this really leads, you can even see the mass hysteria in more modern events, right? Like the, one of our favorite things, the Slender Man phenomenon. It's not real, but people work themselves up.
Yeah.
Also the satanic panic of 1980s. Rumors of secret cults, children spread across the U.S. despite no real evidence. Huge connection to what we just talked about. It's a fear of immigration collide with reality, and things get distorted, and it blows up. It's just a huge loop effect, just like Spring Hill Jack, probably just like the Gorbals vampire too. So the most realistic conclusion could be, what do you think? Probably mass hysteria. But I still think that there's a chance that these entities, this Trickster Fae, could use the knowledge that humans do this as a catalyst. I really want to talk about that in the discussion. So, the Gorbals vampire, the Spring Hill Jack.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on them?
I think there's no weight to the vampire one. No one actually saw him. It was a bunch of kids.
I hate that.
We don't know if the 2 kids ever lived. They lied about it being dead to appease everyone. Like, at least Spring Hill Jack, there are reported sightings.
Yeah.
There are no reported sightings of a vampire in the cemetery.
Well, no credible sightings. The kids said they saw him.
Yeah.
You don't buy it.
No.
That's a bummer. Okay. Before we move on really quick, though, do you think there's any chance that there's something sneaky around the cemetery at night?
I don't think it's this vampire.
What about a shapeshifter?
No.
What about Puka Nakua?
Nope. Maybe his great-great-great-grandparents when they're visiting from Hawaii. No, I don't yeah, it could be haunted. Like, there could be a ghost there.
Absolutely.
But I'm not going to give the vampire a credit for that. Nothing to me says there's a vampire in that cemetery. Nothing.
So I don't think there's actually a vampire. I think there could be a shapeshifter, a trickster's fae, sparking the imagination of these children. I'm going to put that on wax. I think that really could be a thing.
I think you're trying to make these 2 the same, and therefore, to validate the theory for that for Spring Hill, you're then putting it on this. I think you could make a very solid case for Spring Hill Jack. I don't think there's any case that this is a trickster.
I do.
Because there's no real reported sightings.
The kids say they saw it.
What did they see? What did they see?
They said they saw this shadowy figure with the iron teeth. Okay. But anyway, we'll talk about more of them in a minute here. So
in second discussion.
in phase 2. So what do you think about Spring Hill Jack?
I think there's more merit to that. I think there was something. I do. I think there was some entity. Now, maybe it's because I've been watching so many children's shows. To me, it feels like a mad inventor. Like somebody invents, like those rickety, like 1900s, like if you're watching, I mean, not necessarily even just a kid show, but like something that takes place in the 1900s and there's technology, but it's not like our technology, but it's like they can do something
like
more.
Steampunk?
Kind of, something like that. Like something makes this dude bounce and something, he has some projectile attached to a mast that allows fire. You know what I mean? Like steampunky, something like that. And he just feels invincible.
Like a time traveler.
No.
Okay.
No. Advanced technology for that time.
Okay.
Like, it wouldn't be advanced now.
Gotcha.
But some inventor just came up with a way to jump with something in his shoes or something that makes him jump. And then this fire. I'm not saying that's what it is, but I'm saying like that's where my mind is going with this. Yeah, it feels like they're for like, cause like it feels like for like 10 years, somebody's like, I'm just gonna mess with people.
Okay.
If it was supernatural, why'd it go away?
Do you think there's any paranormal element to this?
There could be.
I mean, some
there
people
100%
say he
could
didn't
be.
go away. Like he just moved.
Where?
Well, he went around England. Like he moved out of London.
Stopped. Like the sightings stopped.
Right. He's not been seen since the early 1900s.
That's what I mean. For like 50 years then. No.
50 or 60.
Yeah.
From 1837 to 1904. What a specific time.
But it's not like there's like that. It's not like there's tons of sightings every year.
There's not, no.
Also, they are similar. And I know that's where the mass hysteria comes in.
Yeah.
But I do think these people were assaulted. Do you think somebody was just assaulted and they were like, I didn't see him?
I didn't put in the notes. The one person that was assaulted, Jane Atslow, they do think that someone was actually accused of actually doing that. Not Spring Hill Jack, some guy. Now it doesn't really count for.
Is that the one at the door?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It doesn't really count for like blowing fire. They just say it's some.
Unless he had a blowtorch or something.
I guess, but they said he was a carpenter. They said he was probably very drunk because he was found actually that same night blacked out, like in the street. But they claimed the guy attacked them was sober, but that's debatable. They don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other attacks are just guys. People were terrible back then. People are terrible. I mean, it could. I mean, there's hardly any accountability in a dark alley. They're like goddamn Batman villains.
But there was more than one person that reported the flames, right? The blue and white flames. I thought the person who like didn't pass out, the person who had them jump in the alleyway, I thought there was something with flames there too.
No, I don't think so.
Are you
just
sure?
The one in the house, yeah.
You're positive.
I'm pretty sure.
I thought that one had some blue and white flames.
We made a joke about it, but she didn't. He just kissed her face.
That was earlier.
Yeah.
The one, remember I thought you said 8 years later, but it was 8 days later.
No, he just jumped her. She passed out. That's all it was. There was
no fire in her face or nothing in her face.
There's not.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Why did I think you said that?
I don't know. I said a lot of stuff during this episode.
Okay.
It was just the one house.
I thought there were 2 reported incidents of the blue and white fire.
There were not, unfortunately. It's just the one.
Okay.
No personal space.
No.
Spring Hill he did not have any personal space.
He just jumps out in front of you. He laughs.
Yeah. Yeah.
His moon shoes.
Do you like my tailored suit? Yeah, so that's Spring Hill Jack. So do you think there's any chance there's any kind of supernatural element to this? Or
there could be. Yeah, no, there absolutely could be.
Just for Spring Hill Jack, though.
Yes. I don't think the vampire's real. I think the vampire's 100% mass hysteria.
Okay.
100%.
What entity do you think could Spring Hill Jack be?
I don't know. I don't think it's a demon.
Okay.
I don't think it's a demon.
I don't think so either.
No, it feels like tricksters. It feels like it's up to no good, but it's not like I'm not trying to kill people.
Evil.
I'm trying to mess with people.
Good, but yeah. To me,
chaotic.
Yeah, chaos energy. It's just 100% chaos. That's why I think it's a fae. I really do. For me, I think it's a poorly transformed puka.
I do think something existed. I don't think there's a made up. And I don't particularly feel like they're misrepresentations because even if the blue and the white flames doesn't carry, a lot of people said this dude jumped really far.
Yes,
and
that was reported a lot.
And what excuse do we have for that? Because even if you're like,
really good hops.
It was some dude that mugged someone, and it was somebody else that assaulted them. Well, that doesn't explain the massive jumping.
Right.
And I don't think that's like we're saying, like a car crash, the color. I don't think people are like, I saw him jump 9 feet in the air. Like, that doesn't seem like a detail that you just like.
Yeah, you don't.
Technically, it was 6.4 feet. So
exactly.
Like,
you can measure the wall. Like if you measure the wall at 9 feet, he hopped it.
Yeah. So it's something strange.
Yeah,
something strange happened.
The neighborhood.
And it's reported. It's strange. It has way more merit to me. I can't identify what it is.
That's fair. I'm not necessarily asking you.
It could be mad scientist. It could be your trickster. I don't think it's a demon.
I don't know.
Could be a creature, or it could be, I don't know, some guy who can just jump really.
Guy who like practiced really hard. He's like, I'm going to join the NBA before it starts.
Yes.
And he worked really hard at it. And then he realized it wasn't going to start.
Did you see Wembanyama's out for the whole year?
Oh, no.
And it's like a potential, like lifelong, like something that it's not like he broke something and it'll get fixed. It's like something.
His body just got too tall.
Yeah, it has something to do with, I think, flying a lot. Like, I don't know if it's blood or I don't know. It's not good. I feel bad for him.
That's awful.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we like to rate our episodes, what we talk about, on a scale of believability, from believable to viable to skeptical to unbelievable, in the idea that these entities were supernatural. Where do you fall? You have to rate them both at the same time.
Okay, I'm going unbelievable for the vampire, and I'm going viable for Spring Hill Jack.
Really? You're going that high for Spring Hill Jack?
Something happened.
Okay.
You think all these people just made it up and like the flames, how he looked, how they were attacked, the metal claws, some of that stuff I get.
Yeah.
I don't think him jumping that high and that far is a detail you could mistakenly.
In my most logical brain, where fairies and nothing supernatural exists, you could say he jumped a fence. No one knows exactly how tall it was, and they exaggerated it. That's where my most logical brain of where my father lives with his science and stuff, where he would dismiss this. That's where that lives. Now, in what I think it's an entity. I think it's a puka or a trickster god, something, and it took that energy, fed on it such a long time, such a really, really strange period in London, and it fed on that energy itself.
Can we get one of them to play on the Browns?
We can. It's a Brownies. So,
yeah.
So I go believable. I think
on Spring Hill Jack.
On both.
You go believable on the vampire?
I do think that this entity was not just in London. I think.
Listen, I watch enough sports media where.
I'm so curious.
Okay.
Where's this going?
Sometimes a sportscaster has a take and they will not drop their take even when it feels so obvious that it's a bad take, just because that's like, this is my angle. I'm known for this. This is what I'm doing. I truly feel like you went in this episode like, I'm gonna put Spring Hill Jack and this vampire on the same umbrella. No. And in my opinion, which is my own opinion, I feel like your plan to put them under the same umbrella has skewed your ability to rate this vampire that no one saw. There were no witnesses. There were no deaths. The people that sparked it were never found or seen or may have even existed. And you're trusting the beliefs of scared and freaked out 10-year-olds with knives.
It's like...
And you went believable.
The beginning of this episode of Buffy the Vampire, the children were never dead. They were the monster. Like, they were the fairies that transformed into the vampire. Listen, when I started the research on the Gorbals vampire, I totally went in thinking this is just mass hysteria fueled by paranoia. I twisted my own thoughts. It made more sense to me that this was fueled by the paranormal.
You're allowed to believe whatever you want, and neither one of us is right or wrong. I gave you the most honest thing I feel about it.
Yeah, it's fair. Believable. So that was our episode on the Gorbals vampire, Spring Hill Jack, and the idea of mass hysteria.
Yeah.
It's a lot of words for a title card.
We need to get that coffee.
Spring Hill Jack?
Yeah.
We should.
I get why they do it, right? Put a spring in your step, like coffee, caffeinated. I like it.
The brand,
smart.
The one they do with they used to do Mothman, like the red eyes, but now they discontinued that one, and now they have one called Reptilian in the Morning. I've not tried that one, but
I can't put my politic face on until I have my coffee.
The coffee, it's really good coffee. We should have it, honestly. Should for real.
Remember we had that one. I like ripped the sticker off of it and I kept it upstairs in the attic when we were drinking the coffee. I can't remember even what the sticker was. Why? I think it was like a cat or something.
I do not recall it.
I think it was a cat. I got us like special fancy coffee. It might have been Segway. And,
I think that was Segway.
But I remember I liked the picture of the cat or whatever the logo on the coffee was so much that I ripped it off and I just kept the sticker.
Remember that?
I think it was a cat. I could be wrong.
I don't recall. I wish I did.
You know what I'm talking about, though.
I do remember it.
Yeah. Not the design, but you remember like we had like a nice coffee, and I took the.
But anyway, so those are I told these me crazy stories.
Yeah, no, they're wild.
Yeah, these are nuts. So I just want to thank Shannon for sending me the article on Gorbals Vampire and saying, "Hey, do this," because if you do that, there's a chance we'll do the episode. Not gonna lie, that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed researching this, both stories. And the maybe the less logical and the more logical explanations.
We are not bound to only do episodes that make logical sense. What fun would this podcast be if
what
we
fun
only
would
did...
this life be if that's all we did?
True. So I mean, like I can call something unbelievable until the sun goes down, but that doesn't mean I don't enjoy it as a story or find it fun to talk about.
That's true.
Like don't get it twisted. Like I enjoy all the stuff we talk about, even if I don't necessarily find it believable.
So if you like this episode and you want to go ahead and leave a review on Apple or 5 stars, you only got one chance to do it. So I hope you say something like on Apple. We appreciate it. And if you are on Spotify, you can go under this episode and leave a comment. For every episode you listen to, you can leave a comment. Also leave a review, 5 stars. We appreciate that as well. Some people that went on our Spotify and reviewed this episode.
Skunk Ape,
the one we just did about the Bigfoot cousin
in Florida.
Tim Toiva said, "Saw a cryptid. It's definitely enter any animal with mange."
Yeah,
I was like, that's
facts.
True. And then Angelina said, "My coworker came up to me and asked what I was listening to. I showed him this episode of the podcast, and he said he was going to have to listen to it. Turns out he's totally into everything bizarre and a huge fan of Bigfoot. This is the perfect episode to release on the episode of a Bigfoot cousin."
See, this is the energy we need from y'all.
Good word of mouth.
That's the energy you need right there.
Definitely appreciate
Blast that podcast. Open windows, even though it's cold outside. Let people ask questions.
Yes. Yeah. If you're into the bizarre, you find people are into the bizarre. What do? You say, "Hey, here's this podcast. Slide it over on the DL."
Yes.
Golden Skull said the Land Before Time reference.
Hey.
Hey.
Yeah. I sometimes I can listen back. I'm like, that was shoehorned in a little bit, but that's really what's on my mind. And I'm like, I'm gonna get this.
It was front of mind for you.
I didn't care. I'm still on that egg.
You're like, how are you? I don't care. Eggs.
I got a lot of eggs in my fridge right now. Just keeping it real.
And then Cass said, "I agree with Charlie. The skunk ape is a fairy."
Okay. Did you see the video I posted where I was pulling in my driveway?
Dude, the
and
deer?
there were 4 deer chilling.
They're coming for you.
They were like, you weren't walking. Where were you?
They were getting ready to jump you.
I was at the studio and I come back and literally, I've never almost hit a deer by just pulling in my driveway. I'm like, what is, and they're just right there.
Do you remember picking up Steph from her friend's house? And we were picking up her friend from like near Cleveland area. And do you remember that? There's the big buck in the front yard.
Yeah.
Dude, it was
because we didn't know if it was real, right?
It was laying there.
That happens, dude. There's probably deer laying in my backyard right now.
It was wild.
They just chill. Deer around here, they're just like, what?
Her friend Shantae is scared of deer. Like she's actually scared of deer.
Did she listen to the Not Deer episode?
No, she should.
You should send that. One thing I do want to shout out to be on the lookout for is March 1st through March 14th. We are going to be promoting and putting out a survey. This is the first time we've ever done this, and it's extensive. There's like 20 some questions.
Mm-hmm.
Not 20 some. I think there's like 20 maybe 21 or something like that.
21, right?
I
don't know.
But basically, it's just it's the. I know we talk about reviews and Spotify comments, but this is the most in-depth way for y'all to give us legitimate
Feedback.
Intensive feedback. What you like about the podcast, what you don't like about the podcast, in all those details. And it goes a long way for us. We appreciate the feedback. It's your opportunity to help shape the show and hear the way that you want it to be. Now, does it mean everything suggested will be changed or done? No. Obviously we still have our own creative decisions.
I like the fairies. They're staying.
Yeah, fairies are staying. And the sports references aren't going anywhere.
They're not going anywhere.
But beyond that, it's not all for our benefit. We will be choosing, so you'll be submitting, it'll be a Google form, and we'll be taking randomly one person that submits a form, and that person will win a BTB t-shirt and a $50 Visa gift card.
That's pretty cool. It's a good win.
So that'll be done after the drawing ends. So it's the first 2 weeks of March. Mm-hmm. It'll close on like the 14th. Yeah, we'll announce it on social media who wins, and
then if you do submit, we appreciate the effort.
Yeah, and still it can go into helping us get a better feel of what you guys are into, what you guys are liking. Because for those of you that don't just listen on Tuesdays, there's Bizarre News, there's the Blind Rankings, there's interviews that we've been doing.
Going on, yeah.
There's different story types. There's the listener submissions, there's cryptids, there's hauntings, there's aliens, there's demonic stories, there's fae stories, there's Bigfoot stories, all that stuff we want to get your opinion on. Because, keeping it real, the most important thing is that me and Charlie are putting out a show that we enjoy. But then the next most important thing, or maybe the most important thing, is also putting out a show that y'all like too.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure it's the best of both worlds. Something we enjoy and something you guys...
Hannah Montana life, the best of both worlds.
Exactly. Are we Hannah or are we Montana?
Well, it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
I hate that. But hey, you know what? Thank you guys so much for listening. We appreciate you. As always, I'm Tyler.
And I am Charlie.
And catch us next week on Believing the Bizarre.
A podcast as bizarre as you are.